Our Friday edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members of the Lewis and Clark College community 4 days a week on Facebook Live. You can watch it live 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, Tuesday through Friday, and archived on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, competing in the NCAA Division III World against over 430 institutions nationwide. We are a member of the Northwest Conference, other institutions from Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, as well as the Pioneers based in Portland. A chance for our student athletes, again, to compete on a national scale, and with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program, a chance for our student athletes and students to get experience overseas, a chance to experience other cultures, and get really a full, well-rounded liberal arts education, no matter what their subject matter may be. We're excited to have our guest today, Jim Tursi. He is the longtime head coach of Lewis and Clark women's soccer. We'll have a chance to look back at their Northwest Conference all-time best season last fall. I mean, they really did some outstanding things in terms of wins, winning percentage, the way that their defense stepped up. We'll kind of get a full picture of why they were so successful last year. But I mean, really, Coach Tursi is the dean of Northwest Conference soccer. Has been a longtime coach in the conference, including 15 years at Willamette. He's a mainstay of the Portland culture with soccer and a longtime successful member of the soccer community. So excited to kind of get his history, how he became, an elite soccer athlete and then later on a coach, the backstory behind that. If you have any questions, we'd love for you to let us know in the Facebook comments below, or you can always email us sports@lclark.edu, a chance to let us know even future guests that you want to see on the show or questions for the guests that we have coming up. Keep an eye on Facebook over the course of the weekend because we do post our guests for the upcoming week, usually by Saturday or Sunday, so you have a chance to kind of see who's ahead. And then therefore, if you want to put out a question for someone, you can always do so ahead of time or watch the show live, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can connect with us too on Twitter and Instagram by going to those two platforms and looking up LC Pioneers. At lcpioneers.com, information about our Northwest Conference scholar athletes. First team selections were put out by the conference a couple weeks ago. Again, big congratulations to Lisa Kumasaka of softball. She was a recently graduated senior for the Pioneers. She'll join us on a future episode of this show soon in the coming weeks. And then Sean Richardson, super successful national qualifier for cross country. He also was the men's team selection for Lewis and Clark. You can read about those online at lcpioneers.com. We also have the CSCAA Scholar All-America team, Lewis and Clark swimming programs, both selected for recognition there from the spring 2020 semester. So be sure to check that out right now at lcpioneers.com. And with that, let's bring in our guest for today. Again, longtime soccer coach for Lewis and Clark College and within the Northwest Conference. He's head coach Jim Tursi on lcpioneers.com. Hi, Coach Tursi. Appreciate taking some time out of your Friday to join us. And I talked about it in the intro. A super successful season for your team last fall. The best season they've had in the Northwest Conference since soccer came back in '04. What was it about last year that really stood out and why your team had the success it did?
Well, the best answer is really the freshman class that came in. We had 6 very strong freshmen. 5 of them started and were major players in our success of the season, along with a senior class that's really helped guide them. Those two combinations, I think, really created the opportunity for us to be successful. And I think we finished only one loss in the last 8 games, and that was just PLU, the conference champion. So again, very very successful year. It was defense, but it was also an opportunity for us to score goals, which we haven't had in the past few years. And when you have that combination of defense that was willing to play 90 minutes, knowing that we are able to score at any time, it makes a big difference, psychologically especially.
No, and you talked about goals. I mean, goals against average, that was an all-time best for your program. What components of your team's, side of the ball there that really made a difference that you felt kind of helped springboard you to have such a successful defensive season?
Really, was the midfield was able to hold keep possession long enough to allow our players to get forward. We had speed, which we haven't had in the past. We've had 2 flank players that were just exceptional with pace, and you had a striker that could hold the ball and can then deliver some passes to them while they're at full sprint. It's just a combination of having the right people, doing the right skills, and then gelling. So the first half, remember, we start 5 freshmen, and we have a short start of the season. It takes a while to figure out who can do what and what they do well at. So we were able to figure that out the first half. We went 4-4, split the first half of the season with our Northwest Conference competitors. And second half, it really paid off. We beat everybody in that second half, except for PLU, which was the best team in the conference, no doubt. So overall, I think we were the second best team as the season went on. I think if we had a conference playoff, we could have scared some people.
I You talk about the conference playoff. I had a baseball student athlete who helps us going, we got to get people together. They're about to finish fourth and be in the conference playoff, and I had to break his heart to let him know that for some reason, both women's soccer and volleyball don't have that option to have
Yes.
a top four tournament at the end of the year. But yeah, you're looking at 1.01 goals against average, fewest goals allowed in any season since '04. And you've been in this conference a long time, as I mentioned in the intro. Describe the competitive makeup of this conference and what makes it a really good conference for student athletes to compete in.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, when we travel as a conference preseason out of our conference and play games, I think it's 75% winning percentage from our conference outside our own conference. The problem is we get into conference play and we play everybody twice. It is brutal. I mean, for example, past 2 years where we didn't have a good record, we still end up beating or tying the top team end of the season. So if you're a top team in a conference and you think you have an easy game to play a team in the last or second to last place, uh, forget about it. I mean, again, we proved that the last 2 years before that. So every game's important, and every match it's really a one goal difference. It's just whoever scores first sometimes in this conference. And a lot of that has to do with the type of schools that are in a conference. There's academic schools, but with those academic schools, they still get the quality players that maybe the schools that aren't as high academics in our conference. And that, in a sense, allows everybody in our conference to be competitive. Most conferences in the country are basically top heavy. They have two or three schools that dominate, and the other teams in the conference really struggle. And it's a lot to do with the philosophy of the conference. Let's just have a good time. Let's just, everybody plays. Our conference is set up differently. It's very competitive. Every coach wants to win, and the schools allows that to happen. And that makes a big difference. Why our conference, I think, top to bottom, is one of the top three in the country.
We're talking to head coach Jim Tursi of Lewis and Clark women's soccer, entering his 11th season as the head coach for the Pioneers. And you have over 335 wins lifetime as a women's soccer coach, or sorry, excuse me, as a soccer coach in general. I'm curious, what was it about coaching? How did you get started, and why did it become something that you've continued to do now, decades later?
Well, my playing career kind of ended after my senior year in college. I had a very successful college career. The professional league was an opportunity here, but the league folded. The whole league folded the year after I graduated. And being on the Timbers for that 1 year, even though I was really a reserve player that first year, it had no other options for me to stay in the sport or to go overseas, I guess, is an option, but that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I lost really my passion to play at that point. But I love the sport. I love competing. So I was able to get a coaching job at my old high school. I loved coaching the boys team, varsity team that year, and I just fell in love with the part of coaching, being part of the sport still, knowing that my passion to play wasn't there. I mean, I just didn't have the work ethic at that point to want to try to save a career or potential career that I might have had playing. So that was it was an opportunity to coach. I fell in love with it. And after 4 years of high school, I got an opportunity to coach my alumni team in college. University of Portland gave me a job for the women's team. I never coached women before. And that just, again, just like, oh, this is where I got to be. This is what I want to do. And that's kind of how it started. It really was because of the lack of opportunity to play professionally when I graduated. And it just kept me in the game, I guess. That's the best way to say it.
Well, and then you talked about your success at UP with the Pilots and all-time leading goal scorer and such. I guess my question is, when did you know you were good at soccer?
I knew it. It was in sixth grade. I played soccer. I have older brothers who have all played soccer. We're Italian family. Kind of grew up with soccer in the blood, I would say. And my older brothers played. There wasn't much soccer going on here in Portland, Oregon at the time, but they all played. And I would go out when I was a kid and would watch them play, and then also just they let me play with them, and it came very naturally to me for some reason. But in sixth grade, in particular, Catlin Gable, a school here, private school here, was like they never lost a game in their history of this school. It's a private little high school and grade school, middle school here in Portland, and they were trying to find games. And somehow the coach of Catlin Gable heard about me somehow and said, "Let's go play this kid from Park Rose and see if they want to play a game." Well, there was the teachers at my school said, "Hey, I know you play soccer. They've heard about it. Can you set up the field and they want to come and play us?" So what happened was I was able to figure out how to set the dimensions of the field. The school put together things, and these kids from Catlin Gable came on their bus one day with their little blue and white uniforms, and we were just wearing our jeans or whatever. We put together a team, and I scored 6 goals, and we beat them 7-0. And they never lost a game in their history before this. And I knew right then I had something special going, so that's why I kind of said, I got to figure out a way to play soccer. And luckily for Park Pros, my middle school or high school, they added soccer. And my freshman year, my sophomore year, they had 3-year high school then. My sophomore year, we went to state and we won state. So really, from sixth grade to high school, I had great success at the sport. And it kind of led me to UP, and there you go.
Yeah, now a Hall of Famer for the Pilots as well, and a longtime soccer coach. He's Jim Tursi, Lewis and Clark's women's head soccer coach in his 11th season, has been coaching since 1986, joining us on lcpioneers.com live. You can watch the show live on Facebook Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We're also archived all our past shows available on demand, youtube.com/lcpios. And you talked about all your experience as a player, later now a coach in the city of Portland and certainly the Portland area. Even Salem is an hour removed from Portland when you were coaching at Willamette. What is it about the city of Portland? I definitely agree that this is a place that has a reputation as a soccer city. What are some of the components as to why it's like that?
Well, as you see, I'm wearing a Blazer jersey. We are sports hungry, as they say. With having when I was growing up a one sport town, um, soccer was a natural fit for the type of population that we had here. It was a young, growing metropolis who with a lot of young people who I think a lot of people settled here from overseas too, and kind of gravitated to soccer. As you see, the Timber Army today. I mean, it was that sort back in the day when the Timbers played here originally in the '70s. It was sell out, and it was unheard of back then that people would go watch a soccer game. So you can imagine it was always there. I think there's something to do with just the sport, the type of people that lived here, which is I think similar today. So the city of Portland again, luckily had a one sport town and was looking for another sport for the other population to go and root for, and I think that's why Portland became very successful in soccer. And all the ex players all live here. They're all friends of mine. They all live here. They all grew up, played for us, then ended up living here, having their kids here. So it became a family. It's a small enough. I always call Portland a town, not a city, and I still feel that way today. It's not too big to lose people, and it becomes one person knows one thing, they all know about it. It's just what it is. It's like small school like Lewis and Clark. I mean, you can't get away from it. Everybody knows what's going on.
The Portland Timbers, Portland Thorns game day atmosphere is something else. Describe it to someone who's never been to Providence Park on a game day. What is it like to be part of that atmosphere?
Well, it's a sideshow. I mean, it does. If you've ever been to a game, most people will sit there and watch the crowd. I mean, watch the Timber Army or the Thorns Army. They would sit there and say, "Man, they're nonstop singing. There's a whole other game going on within the game," and that's probably the best way. I know people that have come here from Europe who've gone to see the top level teams play, and they were saying, "Well, this is the closest thing to Europe that we've seen in the States." So it's very unique. It just becomes very fun. I guess the best way. Soccer can be boring. I mean, it can be if you don't know the intricacies of the game, if you don't familiar with the overlapping or the really off the ball stuff that goes on. Soccer is really off the ball. It's not on the ball stuff. It's the movement that happens off the ball that is really, for me, the most exciting part of the game. And most people, who don't know the sport will just focus on the ball and what's happening there. It can be dull to watch. And I think Timber Army having a crowd is constantly moving in a sense of this vocally and physically moving in the stadium, it allows people to kind of be distracted a bit and feel the momentum of a game by their actions. So as the game's moving along, they can feel it from the fans. I mean, that's the best way to explain it.
Now, you were kind enough to kind of walk us through your history as both a player and a coach, over the years, over the decades. And the Oregon Historical Museum is doing something specific to highlight soccer that you'll be a part of. Walk us through what that's going to look like.
Well, I did a private viewing on Tuesday. It does open up in I think following Friday, July. It's a 6 month run at the museum. It's basically showcasing how soccer in Portland became so popular. Just a question you asked me: what was it? Who was involved in it? How did it come about? They have chosen me, one of 10 people that they feel like were part of that movement. I think Portland native, somebody that grew up in the state. How were they involved in it? I think that's again. I've not seen it actually. I've seen pictures they've sent me. I'm going this next Tuesday to actually visit the museum for the first time. But anyway, I'm excited to see what they've done with it. Hope they put me in a good light. I have no idea.
Good luck with that private viewing,
Thank
and,
you.
and we're going to share a link in the Facebook comments from the Timbers that talks about the Soccer City USA exhibit. Turning back to kind of the Lewis and Clark specific topic, we've announced the women's soccer incoming class for 2020-21. I know there's a lot up in the air with the pandemic and how soon people will be able to come back to campus, but assuming everything goes as we would like, what do you say to reasons to look forward to the 2020 season of Lewis and Clark women's soccer?
Well, it's exciting for me because I said going back to last year's class being such an important class for this program to build onto. So I was able to really get kids, or at least focus on kids that could add to the team. So just bringing players in, we were able to kind of say, okay, we need this to fill this position who graduated. We graduated 5 very good seniors um, as of last year, so we really needed to be specific more. So this class coming in is definitely more pinpointed. We've got a few players that will make a huge impact right off the bat. We know that for a fact. We have a few players that we are not sure, but we believe will also have a major impact and maybe even start. So this class will be probably not as dynamic as last year's class, but more important than last year, or more important in the sense of saying to add to last year's class. So we feel like this is a foundation that we haven't had really ever since I've been here. I've had a good class, and then I cannot fill it behind for whatever reason. We just never been able to fill it, back it up. So I've had really 3 great classes here. So my 11 years here now, this is the first time I've had back-to-back classes that can build a foundation that could last and carry us for about 3 to 4 years, where we're also very competitive and chance to win a conference championship. Again, you need 2 classes in a row to really have a chance to compete in this conference, and I think this is the first time we've had that.
Well, let's close with this. Spring took away the opportunity for the non-traditional season. A lot is up in the air. What kind of adjustments did you have to make from a coaching perspective to try to get your team prepared for the upcoming year?
Well, I'm hoping that I guess the best case scenario is that kids are back on campus. That's the number one thing. If we get them on campus and we have some time with them as a non-traditional year in the fall, it will be even better for us. So that then we could really get the team actually participating, practicing ahead of schedule, and hopefully by spring we have a season. To me, this is the best scenario for us, for this team especially, because I think having time with the freshman and sophomore class again before the season starts would be, to me, would add a 1 or 2 more wins than we probably would have gotten if we started the season in the fall. So I'm looking forward to it as a great opportunity. As long as the kids get on campus and we can get them on campus for that year, I think it'll be the best scenario for us.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and I know that things are busy right now too, with everything that you got going on in your life. We'll look forward to checking out that Oregon Historical Society feature, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us today on lcpioneers.com live.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Jim Tursi, appreciate him taking the time to make space for us. He's seriously the most interesting man in the world to play off of the commercials that you probably have seen, but has that big beard too, and he's one of those guys that everybody knows because of how long he's been part of that soccer scene. And so, right before we got on, he started to tell me about this Oregon Historical Society thing, and kind of threw him on the spot to try to describe the best he knew what it's going to look like, but he gets kind of that sneak peek into it. It doesn't look like necessarily the link to it is filling in on the comments, but if for some reason you want to check it out, just type in Timbers Oregon Historical Society Soccer City USA into a Google search and you'll be able to find it. And I agree with him. I am definitely more familiar with a sport like hockey than I am with soccer. But both of those sports remind me of the same kind of discussion when you talk to somebody who thinks one is not fun to watch. A lot of times, watching soccer on TV is more difficult than when you actually go to a game, and especially at Providence Park. I mean, the atmosphere, the electricity of having all of the energy surrounding the game definitely makes it a unique mixture of sight and sound. And that's what I've always told people about hockey is you go to a game, there may not be a better sport with the mixture of sight and sound because now you hear the skates scraping a little bit more and the puck getting slapped around and hitting the boards, and there's just a bigger atmosphere about it that doesn't necessarily translate as well to TV as some other sports. But I also would love, either Coach Tursi or someone who's super versed in soccer to go to a Timbers or Thorns game with, because then you start to see what he was talking about, a lot of the things away from the ball that make that sport super enjoyable to watch. So we're excited to see what his team can do, and you can tell he's pretty excited about the building aspect to capitalize on what was an already great 2019 season. We'll try to post after we end the show a link to our fall 2019 recap because all of our fall sports had pretty strong success and building blocks for the upcoming year. Certainly hope that everyone's staying as safe as possible and that we can get our students on campus. So big thanks again to Jim Tursi for joining us on this edition of lcpioneers.com Live. Next week, we have our guest list partially filled out. We'll continue to add to it, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Over the weekend, each week, we post our upcoming shows for the following week. So you'll start to see pictures and links on how to watch starting tomorrow or Sunday. But we'll have Charlie Morgan join us coming up next Tuesday, an alumnus of the men's rowing program at Lewis and Clark, and talk to him about some of the work he's done in his field, has really excelled, post Lewis and Clark, and he'll be joining us from, I believe, the UK. So it'll be exciting too to have an overseas guest as well. And then Kelly Edwards, former Lewis and Clark men's basketball student athlete, will join us. We'll talk with him about social justice, some of the work that he does with youth, and how he got started with that post Lewis and Clark, as he was a key member of the Lewis and Clark men's basketball program earlier part of the 2010s. So excited to have them. You're more than welcome to join us for those shows and suggest guests too, and our Facebook comments, as well as sports@lclark.edu. So hope you have a great weekend. Big thanks again to Coach Tursi for joining us. Big thanks to you for watching. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us on this Friday edition of lcpioneers.com Live, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live and archived at youtube.com/lcpios. So till we talk to you again next week, goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Trundo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
Lewis and Clark is amazing.
Beautiful campus, small classes.
When you really come here, you get this sense, the feeling that this is a place that you could spend 4 years.
I was so comfortable learning and growing here.
There's no ostentation, there's no pretension, no status. Everyone's just here to learn.
To this bustling metropolitan area.
The overseas program is giving you the opportunity to explore the world, go to places that you never thought of. Just come here, just visit the school, and you're gonna fall in love with it.
It's time to explore Lewis and Clark.